On a civil matter? Sir, are you still there?
I'm here.
Okay, who was the other party in the lawsuit?
Chase Bank. Okay, I'm looking here on this notice. Okay, it's 22-000. Can you hear me?
Okay, you're just a little early, sir. It looks like you're not scheduled to the 28th.
Okay. Well, that's my bad. I'm sorry. I will see you on the 28th. Thank you.
No problem.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you. I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can get an interpreter on the language line.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
They said sometimes was Wait, he wasn't so long.
Okay. Oh, can you hear me in the jail?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, I have an interpreter on the line, ma'am. Can you say something so that we can see if the jail can hear you?
Of course. Hola, buen día. Hablo intérprete en español. ¿Me escuchan?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Excellent day. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with Mr. Calzada.
Right. Okay.
Just
Yeah,
call,
go ahead and introduce myself.
I just called the defendant's name. Okay,
Oh, of course.
okay. We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Jamie Juliet Calzada. The file number is 21-01942. Counsel, can I have your appearance?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Dan Noble on behalf of Ms. Calzada, I'm a student attorney with the Ingham County Public Defender's Office.
State of Michigan, with a defendant. I'm not prepared to take this sort of call, so I'm going to go ahead and transfer you to an interpreter that is this sort of call. Just 1 minute, please.
Okay, thank you. It sounds like we need to be transferred to another interpreter. She's not prepared to take this type of call. Okay, you said you're prepared to be the legal Spanish interpreter?
So I said I will transfer you to your legal Spanish interpreter. Did I please have your numeric access? Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a new interpreter with us. Ma'am, could you please state your name for the record?
Jamie?
Ananta.
The interpreter, can you please state your name for the record?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
I can.
My name is Ananta.
And please spell it, please.
I'm sorry, it's A as in apple, N as in November, A as in apple, N as in November, S as in summer, A as in apple.
Thank you. Can I have you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will translate in the matter now before the court and not divulge confidential communication, so help you God?
Answer.
Thank you. Okay, and the defendant, can you please state your name? Can you interpret that for us, please?
El acusado o acusada, si por favor puede decir su nombre.
Sí, mi nombre es Jamie Calzada Yuki.
Thank you. Today's the date set for an arraignment.
Hoy es el día que se estableció para la lectura de cargos.
I have here a misdemeanor complaint.
Tengo una demanda aquí de un delito menor.
It alleges that on January 16, 2021, at 6329 Hag Road,
Tengo aquí que presuntamente el 16 de enero del 2021 en el 63299 Hag Road,
yes, in the city of Lansing, Ingham County, state of Michigan,
en la ciudad de Lansing, del condado de Ingham en el estado de Michigan,
that you did allegedly, contrary to law, commit the act in count 1 of domestic violence.
y bueno, dice que presuntamente, en contra de la ley, bueno, realizó la cuenta 1 de violencia doméstica.
It alleges that you made an assault or an assault and battery upon a Juan Lambert,
Bueno, da a conocer que agredió o se realizó una agresión con lesiones a un Juan Lambert,
an individual with whom you had a dating relationship or a resident or former resident of your household.
un individuo con el cual tenía una relación de cita o de residente o ex residente del hogar.
This is contrary to Michigan compiled law 750.812.
Y bueno, esto va en contra de la ley del condado 575.812.
This offense may result in restitution
Esto puede resultar en restitución
because this offense may have resulted in damage to another individual's property or physical injury or death to another individual.
porque esto puede haber resultado en daños a la propiedad del otro individuo o daños físicos al otro individuo o muerte al otro individuo.
This is a misdemeanor and the maximum penalty is 93 days and or $500 in fines.
Este es un delito menor, y bueno, la penalidad máxima es de 93 días o una multa de $500.
A consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement.
I'm sorry, could you repeat for me, please?
No problem. A consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement.
Thank you. Muy bien, puede haber una sentencia consecutiva, sí, puede ser impuesta o se puede poner esta sentencia consecutiva, si la agresión, bajo la ley, bueno, fue en un lugar de consentimiento.
Okay, Ms. Gonzalez, do you understand the charge and the maximum penalty?
María, ¿usted entiende los cargos y la penalidad máxima?
Sí.
Did you hear her
I'm
response?
sorry, I was not able to hear any answers.
Can you ask her to repeat her answer, please?
¿Puede repetir su respuesta, por favor?
Sí, sí entiendo.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Gonzalez, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say or anything you put in writing can be used against you.
Bueno, señorita González, bueno, usted tiene el derecho a permanecer en silencio, ya que cualquier cosa que diga o que ponga por escrito puede ser utilizado en contra de usted.
You have the right to proceed to a trial in this matter.
Tiene el derecho de proceder a un juicio sobre este asunto.
And you have the right to have the prosecution prove each element of the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt.
Tiene el derecho a que, bueno, la fiscalía que compruebe cada uno de los cargos que tiene en contra de usted más allá de una duda razonable.
You have the right to be represented by an attorney, and if you cannot afford one, one can be appointed to represent you.
Tiene el derecho de ser representada por un abogado y si no puede usted pagar su propio abogado, se le puede asignar uno.
Mr. Noble, is your client requesting court-appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Gonzalez, you have the right to plead guilty. You can plead not guilty, or you can stand mute.
Bueno, usted tiene el derecho de declararse culpable, de declararse no culpable o de permanecer en silencio mudo.
For the purposes of her arraignment, how would you like to plead, Mr. Noble?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Okay, did you want to interpret that for her?
Por los propósitos, bueno, se le pregunta al abogado de qué manera quiere declararse y no culpable. No culpable.
Okay, you're currently scheduled for a pretrial before Judge Buchanan on March 14th at 10 a.m.
Bueno, está ahorita programado para previa juicio con el juez Buchanan para el día 14 de marzo a las 10 a.m.
Did you get a copy of the notice to appear for that date?
¿Recibió una copia del aviso para comparecer en esa fecha?
Sí.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Noble, were you able to get her current home address?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Did the same address as the alleged victim?
Not to my knowledge, Your Honor.
Okay. Is her current home address 4322 North Grand River?
Yes, Your Honor, to my knowledge.
Su dirección actual es 4322 North Grand River.
Sí.
Yeah.
Okay, does Mr. Lambert live there?
¿El señor Lambert vive ahí?
No.
Can you have a repeater answer?
No.
¿Puede repetir la respuesta, por favor?
No, no vive ahí.
No, he doesn't.
Are you currently employed, Ms. Casada?
¿Usted, señorita Casada, actualmente está trabajando?
No, no estoy trabajando ahora.
¿Perdón?
Que no estoy trabajando.
No, I'm not working.
Oh. Mr. Noble, did you want to address bond?
I would, Your Honor. Prior to, I think we got cut off. I just want to say for the record, I'm motioning to practice under Michigan Court Rule 8.120.
Okay, permission is granted. Also, because we have an interpreter, if you want to take breaks so she can interpret.
Absolutely, Your Honor. I spoke with Ms. Calzada this morning,
Hablé con la señorita Quesada esta mañana,
who informed me that there was a mix-up with the paperwork, and that is why she failed to appear before the court.
who informed me what, sorry, it's a little bit hard to hear.
Can you repeat that, Mr. Noble?
Yes, Your Honor. She informed me she didn't receive the paperwork for the most recent trial date, and that is why she failed to appear.
Ella me informó, quien me informó, que ella no recibió los papeles para el testimonio y por ese motivo falló en comparecer.
She turned herself in today in order to resolve this matter.
I'm sorry, you can repeat a little bit louder, please?
He said she turned herself in today in order to resolve this matter.
Thank you. Y ella se entregó a sí misma el día de hoy para resolver este asunto.
Ms. Calzada has been in contact with our office and her attorney who informed her of the warrant and advised her to turn herself in.
Did you,
Ms. Casada, what, sorry?
has been in contact with her attorney and the attorney that advised her to turn herself on the warrant.
Thank you. Y bueno, la señorita Quesada ha estado en contacto con su abogado, entonces él fue el que le aconsejó que se entregara con respecto a la orden judicial.
She does not appear to be a flight risk, nor does she have criminal history to my knowledge.
She does not appear.
To be a flight risk.
Thank you. Ella, bueno, no parece ser un riesgo, no a mi conocimiento.
We would request her to be released on personal recognizance. Thank you.
Y solicitamos que sea liberada bajo su propio reconocimiento. Gracias.
Okay, in reviewing the file, I do see where her original trial date was reset.
Estoy revisando aquí el archivo y sí veo donde la fecha original se restableció.
And it should have been on the 31st of January, but I could see how that could cause some confusion.
Y bueno, debió haber sido el 31 de enero y sí veo donde esto pudo haber causado confusión.
So I will grant the request for a personal recognizance bond.
Voy a conceder lo que es una fianza bajo su propio reconocimiento.
And that will be at $500 personal recognizance.
Y va a ser de $500 bajo su propio reconocimiento.
Ms. Calzada, make sure you appear to all your future court dates on time.
Señorita Casada, asegúrese de fechas futuras que tenga en el tribunal, asistir a tiempo.
You also cannot have contact directly or indirectly with Mr. Lambert.
Y tampoco puede tener contacto directo ni indirecto con el señor Lamprey, ¿de acuerdo?
And you cannot be within 1,500 feet of wherever Mr. Lambert is.
Y no puede estar a 1,500 pies de donde esté el señor Lambert.
Do you have any questions?
¿Tiene alguna pregunta?
No.
Any additional matters for the record, counsel?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Okay, you're all set, Ms.
No
Posada.
hay ningún asunto adicional para este asunto. No hay ningún asunto adicional.
Okay, you're all set, Ms. Posada.
Todo listo, señorita Casada.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the interpreter. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for using our services. Have a nice day.
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. I have, or is Terry Freeman in there?
What's the last name? Freeman. Freeman,
Freeman? Yes.
Freeman, come up here. Is she gonna just?
It says it's, I'm connecting. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, Your Honor.
Can you see me?
Yeah, Honor.
Okay, something's going on with my Zoom, but I will proceed long as you can hear me. We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Terry Wayne Freeman, the file number 21-01657 FY, counsel appearance.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. John Abbott with the Ingham County Public Defender's Office, appearing on behalf of Mr. Freeman for today's arraignment.
Okay. And you can still hear me, Mr. Freeman?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Today was the date that was set for arraignment because you had an outstanding warrant. You were ordered to undergo a forensic evaluation at the Center for Forensic Psychiatry. The court received notice dated January 26, 2022, addressed to Judge Louise Alderson, that you failed to appear and were unable, so they were unable to comply with the court's order for evaluation. That's the information you received as well?
It is, Your Honor, and I have, it's true, we didn't. I have some explanation.
Okay, you can proceed with the explanation.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's a long way to Saline, and he was unable to find transportation. He spoke with the people in Saline, and they advised him that no problem, you can schedule that with your defense attorney. You can just appear with him. Unfortunately, Your Honor, at the time, we weren't allowed to let anybody into our offices. So the potential solution that they advised him to search for, the alternative that they advised him to do was unavailable to him. So, so the interview didn't happen. It wasn't necessarily his fault, Your Honor. He had a transportation problem on the date of the scheduled interview, and then thought that everything would be cleared up if he just talked to his defense attorney, and I couldn't clear it up for him. I advised him to turn himself in. He did today, and I'd asked the court to reinstate his bond, and we'll reschedule that interview. And also now we actually could let him into our offices. And speaking with Judge DeLuca, he said he would make an office up here available at our conference room. So I think we can solve the problem.
The issue was that he couldn't get to Saline, Michigan.
Yes.
And he has no other way to get on or to access technology, is what you're stating?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay, but at this point, he's in good communication with his attorney, and arrangements can be made for him to have that evaluation.
Yes, Your Honor. His mother calls me frequently. He lives with his mother here in Lansing.
Okay. The bond was originally set at 3,000 personal recognizance. Reinstate the bond. The order for you to be evaluated is already entered. You need to make sure you comply. If you're having some issues with getting in touch or making communication with your attorney, you need to notify the court. We need to come to the court so that we can get you on some kind of device to have your evaluation done. Okay, sir?
Yes.
Okay, do you have any questions today?
No, ma'am.
I'll reinstate the bond at 3,000 personal recognizance. Any additional matters for the record?
No, thank you.
You're all set, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Zoom tells me I have an unstable connection or fire wall block, so I can't see what's going on. Yes, on my computer, yeah. It could be on another one. Okay, do we have Larry Ferris? So are you Mr. Larry Ferris?
All right.
Can you say something, because we didn't hear you?
I'm okay.
Okay. We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Larry Allen Ferris, file number 21-02591, FY council appearance.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Dan Noble on behalf of Mr. Ferris. I'm a student attorney with the Ingham County Public Defender's Office, motioning to practice under Michigan Court Rule 8.120. I'm under the supervision of the Assistant Public Defender, James Keithley. On behalf of Mr. Ferris for arraignment purposes only, and he did make application for our office.
Thank you. The permission is granted. Today's the date that's set. Mr. Ferris, for your arraignment, I have a felony complaint here. It alleges that on or about August 11, 2021, at the area of 225 Gear Street, City of Lansing, Ingham County, that you did allegedly contrary to law commit the act in count 1 of unlawful imprisonment, that you did secretly confine and knowingly restrain an Erika Ferris, contrary to Michigan Compiled Law 750.349B. This alleged action is subject to the Sex Offender Registry Act. So there's a notice that said this is a tier 1 offense under the Sex Offender Registry Act if the victim is a minor. It is a tier 2 offense if the defendant has a prior conviction for a tier 1 offense. And this is under Michigan Compiled Law 28.722 R and T. It is a tier 3 offense if the defendant has a prior conviction for a tier 2 offense under MCL 28.722 U. This is a felony. The maximum penalty is 15 years in prison and or $20,000 in fines. There's a count 2 of interfering with a crime report or committing a crime and threatening to kill or injure. It alleges that you did, through the unlawful use of force, prevent or attempt to prevent another person from reporting a crime committed or attempted by another person, and the violation involved threatening to kill or injure a person, and that this was done contrary to Michigan Compiled Law 750.43A2B. That's a felony with the maximum penalty being 10 years in prison and or $20,000 in fines. A consecutive sentence may be imposed for any other conviction. There's a count 3, domestic violence aggravated. It alleges that you did assault Erica Ferris, an individual with whom you had a child in common, or a resident or former resident of your household, or your spouse, or an individual with whom you had a dating relationship, without a weapon, and did inflict serious or aggravated injury upon her, but without intending to commit murder or inflict great bodily harm less than murder, and that this was done contrary to Michigan Compiled Law 750.8182. Restitution is possible, as this offense may have resulted in damage to another individual's property or physical injury or death to another individual. This is a misdemeanor with the maximum penalty being 1 year and or $1,000 in fines. A consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. Mr. Ferris, do you understand the charge and the maximum penalty associated with the charge?
Yes.
Mr. Ferris, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, anything that you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to be represented by counsel, and you are represented by Mr. Noble and Mr. Keithley today from the Office of the Public Defender. But you have the right to have an attorney represent you at each stage of this criminal proceeding. If you cannot afford to hire an attorney, but you economically qualify, an attorney can be appointed at the expense of the public to represent you. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Are you requesting court-appointed counsel?
Yes.
You have the right to plead guilty, you have the right to plead not guilty, and then you have the right to stand mute. You have the right to proceed to a preliminary examination in this matter within 21 days of today's date. At the time of your examination, you have the right to have the prosecution establish their burden of probable cause. They have to establish that there's sufficient probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause to charge you with that crime. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
You also have the right to proceed to a jury trial in this matter. At the time of your trial, you have the right then to have the prosecution prove each element of the charge against you, and they have to prove each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand those rights?
Yes.
You have the right to be considered for pretrial release from custody. We'll address your bond in just a moment. You're currently scheduled for probable cause conference before Judge Cynthia Ward. It's going to be on Thursday, March 3rd, 2022 at 1:00 p.m. You have a preliminary examination scheduled before Judge Ward on Friday, March 11th, 2022 at 9:00 in the morning. Did you get notice of those dates, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any questions at this time?
No.
What's your current home address?
Would be 6255 Marywood.
Is that in Lansing?
Yes.
Are you currently employed?
No, I'm not.
What's your phone number?
I do not currently know my phone number. I just got it just because I'm trying to get a job.
You want to address bond?
Thank you, Your Honor. I spoke with Mr. Ferris this morning, who informed me that he is a lifelong resident of the community who is looking for work. He lives with a parent, and his 4 children live with him, who he is responsible for. He did inform me that he has a limited criminal history, and to my knowledge, it's not to the violent nature. And while these allegations are quite serious, they are allegations at this time, and Mr. Ferris is entitled to the presumption of innocence. We would request a high PR bond in this matter or a low 10% cash bond, Your Honor. Thank you.
For the purposes of today's arraignment, the court will enter a plea of not guilty on behalf of your client. I don't know if I stated that earlier. Due to the nature of the allegations, I believe that there is a threat to the safety of the public and to the safety of the victim. And so because of that, I will be denying the request for personal recognizance bond. I will issue a bond in the amount of 25,000, 10%. While out on bond, Mr. Ferris, you're not to have any contact directly or indirectly with the alleged victim, Erica Ferris, okay?
Yep.
You're not to be within 1,500 feet of wherever she is. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You're not to have contact directly or indirectly. So that means you can't cause anyone else to make any statements on on your behalf to her.
Yes, I understand that.
Okay. You can make sure you appear to all of your future court dates on time. You're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior. You're not to use, purchase, or possess alcohol or drugs unless you have a valid prescription. You're not to travel outside the state without prior approval of this court. You need to report to pretrial services within 48 hours of your release, and you're not to possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Do you have any questions?
No, not really. I mean, I go sit in jail, I guess.
Okay. Any additional matters for the record, counsel?
I think for the record, Your Honor, I want to ensure I have the amount correct. You said 25,000?
25,000, 10%.
Yes, 10%. Thank you.
Thank you. You're all set, sir.
Yep.
Randall Rouse. You Randall Rouse?
Yes.
Okay, we're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Randall Rouse. This is file number 12-04826. That's why, counsel appearance, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Dan Noble on behalf of Mr. Rouse for arraignment purposes only, the student attorney with the Ingham County Public Defender's Office, motioning to practice under Michigan Court Rule 8.120. I'm under the supervision of Assistant Public Defender James Keithley.
Thank you. Today's the date set for an arraignment. Mr. Rouse, I have here a felony warrant and complaint states that on or about June 14th, 2012, at the area of 709 Pacific Ave, City of Lansing, Ingham County, that you did allegedly contrary to law, commit the act in count 1 of Sex Offenders Failure to Comply with Registration Act, and that you did willfully violate the Sex Offenders Registration Act by failing to report an email address within 3 days of obtaining it in violation of 28.725 IF, contrary to Michigan Compile Law 28.729 IA. That's a felony with the maximum penalty being 4 years and or $2,000 in fines. Upon conviction of a felony or attempted felony, the court shall order law enforcement to collect the DNA identification sample. Do you understand the charge and the maximum penalty associated with that charge, sir?
I was already incarcerated at the time that they said
I'm not
that.
asking if you understand why the charge was issued against you. I'm asking if you understand the charge that was read and the maximum penalty associated with the charge.
Okay,
It
yeah,
sounds like what you're gonna say may be something that you believe would be a defense to the underlying charge.
okay,
But my
Yes.
question, sir, was, do you understand the charge, which was
Understand.
sex offenders failure to comply with Registration Act and the maximum penalty? And what's
Understand.
being alleged that you did? Do you understand that, sir?
yes,
Okay. So you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty. You have the right to plead not guilty, and you have the right to stand mute. You have the right to be represented by counsel. You're represented by the public defender's office today for the purposes of your arraignment. But you have the right to have an attorney represent you at each stage of this criminal prosecution. And if you cannot afford to hire an attorney, but you economically qualify, an attorney can be appointed to represent you at the expense of the public. Do you understand that?
yes,
Okay, is he requesting court appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Roush, you have the right to proceed to a preliminary examination within 21 days of today's date. At the time of your examination, you have the right to have the prosecution establish the burden of probable cause. And that's probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause to charge you with the crime. Do you understand that, sir?
I understand,
You also have the right to proceed to a jury trial in this matter. And at the time of jury trial, you have the right then to have the prosecution prove each element of the charge being brought against you. You have to prove each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that?
yes,
For the purposes of today's arraignment, I will enter a plea of not guilty for your client. Is that okay?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, you're currently scheduled for probable cause conference before Judge Stacia Buchanan on March 3rd, 2022 at 9 o'clock in the morning. You have a preliminary examination before Judge Buchanan on Thursday, March 10th, 2022 at 10 o'clock in the morning. Did you get a copy of those notices to appear, sir?
I have paperwork here, yes, I think,
Okay. And did you have any questions at this time?
no,
Okay, where are you currently employed?
I'm not,
What's your home address?
2011 Victor Avenue,
In the city of Lansing?
yes,
What's your phone number?
517, I have it written down on my wall, I don't have it on my phone number on me. I don't, it's not my phone number, it's my home, it's the mother's phone number, so.
Oh.
I don't have a phone,
Counsel, did you want to address bond?
Yes, Your Honor. I spoke with Mr. Rouse earlier today. He said since his release in 2012, he registered on time. He's registered now, and his registration is current. He's not, because this matter is almost 10 years old, he has not been in trouble since, or else he would have appeared before today in front of the court. He lives with his mother who can ensure his next appearances. And I believe he turned himself in today, though my notes are not clear on that. However, this is a serious allegation, but it's not all that serious considering We would request a PR bond for him to be released to his mother today. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Ross is 41 years old. Is
Yes.
there a particular reason why his mom has to ensure he comes to court?
I didn't say that he will. I just said that she could.
Yeah, I'm just wondering why she would need to. Why can't he ensure himself to come to court?
I'll be here if I'm told to be here, yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe there to be an immediate threat to the safety of the public. I also believe that you will return to court. I do have a copy of your criminal history. I don't see where you've had any engagement with the court since your last criminal conviction. So I will grant the request and issue a personal recognizance bond in the amount of $2,500 personal recognizance. While out on bond, need to make sure you appear to all of your court dates on time, sir. You have to travel outside the state without prior approval of the court. You need to report to pretrial services within 48 hours, okay?
Yes.
You have any questions?
The court hearings that I'm supposed to attend the Zoom, do I do them here in this building?
Okay, so you have a probable cause conference, and that can be via Zoom. If you received notice, it should have came with a Zoom login information sheet. Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, so your probable cause conference will be via Zoom. Your exam is in person though, okay?
Okay.
So you gotta come in person for that one, but you can log in using those instructions for your preliminary, I'm sorry, for your probable cause conference on March 3rd, okay?
Okay.
Do you have any other questions, sir?
No.
Okay. Any additional matters for the record, counsel?
No, Your Honor. Mr. Rouse, if you have any trouble with Zoom, just come to the court in person.
Okay.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. You're all set, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. It's Tanisha Nathan. Okay, are you Tanisha Nathan?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're on the record in the matters of the people of the state of Michigan versus Tanisha Nathan. I have two files here. One is file number 21-01895, and then I have file number 22-00511 FY. Counsel appearance, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Dan Noble on behalf of Ms. Nathan for arraignment purposes only. I'm a student attorney with the Ingham County Public Defender's Office, practicing under Michigan Court Rule 8.120 and under the supervision of Assistant Public Defender James Keithley.
Thank you. And today, our permission is granted. Ma'am, today is the date that is set for an arraignment on both files. Looks like on file number ending in 01895, you were supposed to be arraigned on a summons, and you were summoned to appear back on August 20th for arraignment on the charge of a retail fraud 3rd degree, which you failed to appear. I have here a complaint which indicates that you allegedly on or about January 20th, 2021, in the area of 6200 South Pennsylvania Avenue, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, did allegedly, contrary to law, commit the act in retail fraud 3rd degree, that you did allegedly, while Meyer was open to the public, steal property of the store that was offered for sale at a set price less than $200, contrary to MCL 750.356D4. That's a misdemeanor with the maximum penalty being 93 days and or $500 in fines, or 3 times the value or difference in price of property stolen, obtained, or attempted to be obtained, whichever is greater, and to impose a fine of 3 times the value. The defendant must admit the amount, or it must be determined by the trier of fact at trial. You understand the charge there, ma'am, and the maximum penalty associated with that charge?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and the other file, and then in file number 511. Have here a felony complaint, and that alleges that on or about February 22nd, 2022, at the area of South Washington and Hazel and Elm, that you did allegedly contrary to law commit the act in count 1 of police officer fleeing 3rd degree under the vehicle code. It alleges that you, being the driver of a motor vehicle to whom was given a visible or visual or audible signal by hand, voice, or emergency light or siren by Officer Daniel Evanoff, a police officer who was in uniform, and the officer's vehicle was identified as a official police vehicle, acting in the lawful performance of his or her duty, directing the defendant to bring her motor vehicle to stop, did willfully fail to obey that direction by attempting to flee or elude the officer in an area where the speed limit was 35 miles per hour or less, that this was contrary to Michigan Compiled Law 257.60283. This is a felony. The maximum penalty is 5 years and or $1,000 in fines. Secretary of State shall suspend license for 1 year under MCL 257.319. There's a count 2 of driving reckless. It alleges that you did drive a vehicle upon the highway, Mount Hope in Washington, in a willful and wanton disregard for the safety of persons or property. That this was done contrary to MCL 257.626. That's a misdemeanor with the maximum penalty being 93 days in jail and or $500 in fines. There's a count 3 of operating license suspended, revoked, or denied. It alleges that you did operate a motor vehicle upon Elm Street, a highway, while your operator's license was suspended or revoked as prohibited by Michigan Compiled Law 257.9041, contrary to Michigan Compiled Law 257.9043A. That is a misdemeanor with the maximum penalty being 93 days in jail and or $500 in fine and vehicle immobilization. Do you understand the charges read in that file and the maximum penalty associated there, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say and anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty. You have the right to plead not guilty, and you have the right to stand mute. You have the right to be represented by an attorney, and you're represented by the public defender's office for the purposes of your arraignment today only. But you have the right to have an attorney with you to represent you at each stage of this criminal prosecution. And if you cannot afford to hire your own attorney and you economically qualify, an attorney can be appointed to represent you at the expense of the public. Do you understand those rights, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is she requesting court appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And the felony file with the police officer fleeing 3rd degree, ma'am, you have the right to proceed to a preliminary examination. You have the right to have that examination within 21 days of today's date. You have the right at the time of that examination to have the prosecution establish that there's sufficient probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause to charge you with that crime. Do you understand that, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
In each of these files, you have the right to proceed to a jury trial. And at the time of your jury trial, you have the right to have the prosecution then prove each element of the charges that they bring against you. And they have to prove each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand those rights?
Yes, ma'am.
You also have the right to be considered for pretrial release from jail. We'll discuss bond in a minute. You're currently scheduled for probable cause conference on the felony file on Thursday, March 3rd, 2022 at 9 o'clock in the morning before Judge Stacia Buchanan. You have preliminary examination before Judge Buchanan on Thursday, March 10th, 2022 at 10 o'clock in the morning. On the other file with the retail fraud, you have a pre-trial conference before Judge Buchanan on March 14th, 2022 at 9:30 in the morning. Did you get a copy of the notice to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and it should have came with some information on how to use or log in via Zoom. Did you get that as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any questions for the court at this time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, for the purposes of her arraignment, how would you like to plead?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
The court will enter a plea of not guilty in your behalf on both files. Are you currently employed?
No, ma'am.
What's your phone number?
385-404-6822.
What's your home address?
322 West Maple Street.
Do you want to address bond?
Thank you, Your Honor. I spoke with Ms. Nathan this morning, who informed me she's been back in the area permanently for 4 months. She was born here and lived most of her young adult life here. However, she does have family in Florida, so she spent some time there. She does have family in the area, a mother and brother, and she has friends in the area, so she has a strong support network. She is currently looking for work, and she did inform me that she has no priors, she's not on probation or parole, and she has failed to appear. Additionally, she does have some current cases out of other counties. However, to my knowledge, they are nonviolent. Additionally, these matters before the court today are nonviolent. And while they are serious, they are still allegations at this point, Your Honor. We would request a high PR bond in both matters. Thank you.
Is she in warrant status?
No, Your Honor, I just saw them as holds.
Okay, she does not have any prior criminal history. It does appear that she would not be a danger to the community. Ma'am, do you have the ability to log in to court via Zoom?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you understand that you need to appear back in court for all of your future court dates?
Yes, ma'am.
And I recognize that you did miss your arraignment.
When I got the notice, the date was already passed. I don't live at the other address they sent it to, and I made sure that I called. And I have a screenshot of me calling just for purposes. And they never got back to me.
Okay, well, make sure you appear for your future court date, and then if you get court-appointed counsel, you would need to make sure you stay in contact with them if you're having some issues. With Zoom, you can always come into court. We're open to the public, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll grant the request for a personal recognizance bond on the file number ending in 1895. The bond will be set at $500 personal recognizance. And the other file ending in 00511, the bond's going to be set at 2,500 personal recognizance. While out on bond, ma'am, you need to make sure you return to all of your future court dates, and you need to return on time. You're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior. You're not to use, purchase, or possess drugs or alcohol unless you have a valid prescription. You're not to travel outside the state without prior approval of the court. You need to report to pretrial services within 48 hours of your release. You're also not to enter the address of 6200 South Pennsylvania Ave. Do you have any questions?
No, ma'am.
Any additional matters for the record?
Nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
You're all set, ma'am. Just a retail. Helen Bishop.
Oh, geez. The way it sounds like the way it echoes.
Are you
Hello.
Helen Bishop?
Yes,
We're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Kellen James Bishop, file number 21-02580, council appearance.
Thank you and good afternoon, Your Honor. Dan Noble on behalf of Mr. Bishop for arraignment purposes only. Motioning to practice under Michigan Court Rule 8.120. I'm a student attorney with the Ingham County Public Defender's Office and under the supervision of Assistant Public Defender James Keithley.
Thank you. Permission is granted. Mr. Bishop, today's the date that's set for arraignment. I do have a misdemeanor complaint here. It alleges that on or about August 13, 2021, at the area of 1215 Cleo Street, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you did allegedly, contrary to law, commit the act in count 1 of domestic violence. It alleges that you made an assault or assault and battery upon a Lydia Stevens, who was an individual with whom you had a child in common or an individual with whom you had a dating relationship. And that this was contrary to Michigan Compiled Law 750.812. Restitution is possible as this offense may have caused damage to another individual's property or physical injury or death to another individual. That's a misdemeanor with the maximum penalty being 93 days in jail and or $500 in fine, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. Do you understand the charge and the maximum penalty there, sir?
yes,
Okay. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say, anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty. You have the right to plead not guilty, and you have the right to stand mute. You have the right to be represented by counsel if you cannot afford to hire an attorney, but you economically qualify. An attorney can be appointed to represent you at the expense of the public. Do you understand those rights?
yes,
Okay, is he requesting court-appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Bishop, you have the right to proceed to a jury trial in this matter, and at the time of your trial, you have the right to have the prosecution prove each element of the charge against you, and they have to prove each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand
Oh,
that,
yeah.
right?
I do. And I'm gonna exercise it fully.
Okay, thank you. For the purposes of today's arraignment, I assume he's pleading not guilty.
That is correct, Your Honor.
Thank you. You're currently scheduled for a pretrial conference before me, Judge Kristen Simmons, on March 8, 2022 at 10:30 in the morning. Did you get a copy of your notice to appear, sir?
I have a copy.
Okay, and that proceeding will be held via Zoom. However, you can come in person if you are granted bond, okay, sir?
Yes,
Okay. And do you have any questions at this time?
no,
Okay. Are you currently employed?
yes.
Where's that?
Tri-County Electric Co-op in Portland, Michigan.
What's your home address?
1728 West Miller Road, Lansing, 48911.
What's your phone number?
231-620-7935.
Okay, Counsel, did you want to make a motion on bond?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I spoke with Mr. Bishop this morning, who informed me that when he found out about his warrant status, he turned himself in today. He has lived in the area for 3 years, but he's lived in Michigan his whole life. He has family up north, and his child lives in the area, and he's gainfully employed, so I did not determine him to be a flight risk in this matter. He did inform me he has a slight criminal history. However, it's nothing of the violent nature. He's not currently on probation or parole, nor has he ever failed to appear in court before. We would request a PR bond in this matter, Your Honor. Thank you.
It's not appeared that Mr. Bishop presents a risk to the safety and security of the public, so I'll grant the request for personal recognizance bond. Bond will be set at $500 personal recognizance. While out on bond, sir, you're not to have any communication directly or indirectly with the alleged victim. Do you understand that?
I do, and I also have a question about that.
Okay, well,
Like, it's a slight thing. I just want to note that this did happen in August. Whether, I'm guilty or not, that's yet to be, we can determine that with this process, but I mean, I've been meeting with her every other weekend to get my kid since then with no issues. There's no, what do you want to say? There's no, she doesn't have like a personal protection order against me. And I don't know how these things work, but if there's some way I could just continue at least getting my kid throughout, on my every other weekend while this was going on.
you said she has a personal protective order against you?
No,
Or
she
does
doesn't.
not?
She does not.
No. And this happened in August, and I didn't even find out I had a warrant until recently. And we've been meeting, doing meetups we meet at McDonald's, and I get my kid every other weekend on Friday, and then I drop him off on Sunday. And nothing's really changed, besides this. And, I'm not telling you how to do your job. I just really want to see my kid.
Okay, there's still gonna be a no contact order between you and the victim. If the victim wants to appear and request otherwise, I'll entertain it, but at this time, there's a no contact order between you and the victim. You're not to be within 1,500 feet of where she lives, works, or goes to school. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
You're not to have communication with her directly or indirectly. Do you know what that means?
Does that mean I can't, like, if I want to see if I want to contact her father and be like, can we meet to do the exchange?
I will allow you to do that, sir. I will allow you to have third-party contact in reference to the child care, okay?
The child, yeah.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
But that's the only purpose in which I'm granting third-party contact. Do you have
Yes.
any other questions about that?
No, thank you.
No problem. You need to make sure you appear to all your future court dates on time. You're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior while you're on bond. You're not to travel outside of the state without approval of the court while on bond. You're not to use, purchase, or possess alcohol or drugs without a prescription. Do you understand that?
Yes.
And you're also not to possess a firearm or any other dangerous weapon. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for the court?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Any additional matters for the record?
No, Your Honor. Thank you for the granting third-party contact.
No problem. And you're all set, sir.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Burt-eyed.
Yes,
You Burt-eyed, sir?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're on the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Bert Luther Ide. The file number is 22-00509. Council appearance.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Dan Noble on behalf of Mr. Ide for arraignment purposes only, motioning to practice under Michigan Court Rule 8.120. I'm a student attorney with the Ingham County Public Defender's Office and under the supervision of Assistant Public Defender James Keithley.
Thank you. And permission is granted. Mr. Ide, today's the date set for an arraignment. I do have a misdemeanor complaint. It alleges that on or about February 22nd, 2022, at the area of 1832 Coleman, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, you did allegedly, contrary to law, commit the act in count 1 of domestic violence. It alleges that you did make an assault or assault and battery upon a Patricia Ide, a resident or former resident of your household or your spouse, and that this was done contrary to Michigan Compiled Law 750.812. Restitution is possible as this offense may have resulted in damage to another individual's property or physical injury or death to another individual under MCL 780.811A. That's a misdemeanor. The maximum penalty is 93 days in jail and or $500 in fines, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. There's a second offense notice. It says, take notice that the defendant was previously convicted of assaulting and battering his or her spouse, former spouse, an individual with whom he or she had a dating relationship, an individual with whom he or she had a child in common, or a resident or former resident of his or her household, or of knowingly assaulting a pregnant individual by violating MCL 750.812 on or about April 12, 2016. And therefore, upon conviction, will be subject to enhanced sentence under MCL 750.814. The maximum penalty now is a misdemeanor, 1 year and or $1,000 in fines, and a consecutive sentence may be imposed under the law if the assault was committed in a place of confinement. Do you understand the charge, Mr. Ide, and the maximum penalty associated with the charge?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You have the right to be represented by counsel. You're represented by the Public Defender's Office today for the purposes of your arraignment. But you have the right to have an attorney represent you at each stage of the criminal prosecution. If you cannot afford to hire an attorney, but you economically qualify, an attorney can be appointed to represent you at the expense of the public. Do you understand that right, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you requesting court-appointed counsel?
Yes, ma'am.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say and anything you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty. You have the right to plead not guilty, and you have the right to stand mute. You have the right to proceed to a jury trial in this matter, and at the time of jury trial, you have the right to remain silent and not have silence be used against you. You have the right to cross-examine or question any witness that the prosecution intend to call. You have the right to call your own witnesses or present evidence that you believe would further any defense that you may have. You also have the right then to have the prosecution prove each element of the charge against you beyond the reasonable doubt. You understand that, right, sir?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is he requesting court-appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
And for the purposes of today's arraignment, how would your client like to plead?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Mr. Ide, you're currently scheduled for pre-trial before Judge Buchanan. It's going to be March 14, 2022 at 10 o'clock in the morning. Did you get a copy of the notices and as well as the notice on how to dial in via Zoom?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Are you currently employed?
Yes and no,
No, it's got to be one or the other.
because I'm a assistant helper with supposed to be assistant helper with my wife with her patient, because she don't have the strength to pick him up if he falls. So she asks me to help pick him up.
Okay.
Because she's a caretaker for.
I'm gonna go ahead and write down unemployed, okay?
Yes.
Okay. What's your home address?
1832 Coleman Avenue. Lansing, Michigan, 48910.
That's the address of the alleged incident.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that where the alleged victim lives?
That's where my wife lives.
Okay, where would you reside? if
I was-
Granted bond.
If I was to get out today, I was planning on, I'd had to make at least a stop to my house and get what I can get, and then I was gonna head to Jackson to stay with somebody in Jackson.
Who in Jackson would you be staying with?
His name is Brian Miller. I used to stay with him before.
You have his address?
I can't remember the whole thing right off the top of my head, but I know it's on Stillwell Avenue in Michigan Center.
Okay, sounds good. What's your phone number?
My number right now is 517-624-8146. And I have a free government phone, but I don't know what that number is by heart yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you want to make a bond motion, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. I spoke with Mr. Ide this morning, who informed me that he's been living in the area for 4 years, but Michigan for majority of his life. He has family in Jackson and Flint, and as he provided this court, he has somewhere to stay throughout while this case is pending against him. He is currently looking for work, and he did inform me that he does have criminal history. And as the court noted, he has a prior conviction in 2016 that is over 5 years old. He informed me he's never failed to appear and he's not on probation or parole. We would request a high PR bond in this matter, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to grant the request for a personal recognizance bond. I'm going to issue bond in the amount of 2,500 personal recognizance. While out on bond, sir, you're not to have any contact directly or indirectly with Patricia Ide. You understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Not to be within 1,500 feet of wherever she lives, wherever she works, wherever she goes to school. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Need to provide the court with an address of where you'll be staying within 24 hours of your release. I will allow you to go to the residence once accompanied by a peace officer to get personal items, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Also, while out on bond, you're not to use, purchase, or possess any drugs or alcohol unless you have a valid prescription. You're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior. You need to make sure you report to court for all of your future court dates. You're not to travel outside the state of Michigan without prior approval of the court. You're not to purchase or possess a firearm or other dangerous weapon. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any questions at this time?
I'm just glad that you allowed me to get out so I can get on with my life.
Okay. So if there's no questions, you're all set, sir, and don't forget your next court date, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your Honor, we're on the way over to log into the mobile card if that works for you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I don't think I have the ability to admit that. My computer says not online. Which makes no sense because I'm clearly on Zoom. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, ma'am.
Okay. On the record in the matter of the people of the state of Michigan versus Julio Martinez Miranda, file number 22-00512 FY, counsel appearance.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Your Honor. Dan Noble on behalf of Mr. Miranda for arraignment purposes only. I'm a student intern with Ingham County Public Defender's Office, motioning to practice under Michigan Court Rule 8.120. I'm under the supervision of Assistant Public Defender James Keithley.
Thank you. And Mr. Martinez Miranda, today's the date set for an arraignment. I have a misdemeanor complaint here, and it alleges that on or about January 23rd, 2022 at 209 South Washington, City of Lansing, Ingham County, State of Michigan, that you did allegedly contrary to law commit the act in count 1 of malicious destruction of a building, $200 or more, but less than $1,000. And it alleges that you did willfully and maliciously destroy or injure a building or its appurtenances located at 209 South Washington that belong to Gentilozzi Real Estate, and the amount of the destruction or injury was $200 or more, but less than $1,000. This is contrary to Michigan Compile Law 750.3804A. That's a misdemeanor with a maximum penalty being 1 year and or $2,000 in fines, or 3 times the amount of destruction or injury, whichever is greater. Sir, do you understand the charge there and the maximum penalty?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. You have the right to be represented by counsel. You're represented by Mr. Noble and Mr. Keithley for the purposes of your arraignment today. But you have the right to have an attorney with you to represent you at each stage of the criminal prosecution. If you cannot afford to hire an attorney to represent you, but you economically qualify, an attorney can be appointed to represent you at the expense of the public. Do you understand that right, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, is he requesting court-appointed counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Martinez Miranda, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say and anything that you put in writing can be used against you. You have the right to plead guilty, you have the right to plead not guilty, and then you have the right to stand mute. You have the right to proceed to a jury trial in this matter. At the time of jury trial, you have the right to remain silent and not have silence be used against you. You have the right to cross-examine or question any of the witnesses that the prosecution intends to call. You have the right to call your own witnesses or present evidence at trial that you believe will further any defense you believe you may have. And you also have the right to have the prosecution prove each element of the charge against you, and they have to prove each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, do you have any questions about those rights at this time? I'm assuming that's a no. Okay, you're currently scheduled for a pretrial before me, Judge Kristen Simmons, Tuesday, March 8th, 2022 at 1:30 in the afternoon. Did you get a copy of the notice already, sir? Can you hear me? Okay, I'm gonna assume he's being non-responsive. We'll make sure you get a copy of that notice to appear. For the purposes of today's arraignment, how would your client like to plead?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
Mr. Martinez Miranda, what's your home address?
430 North Large.
Do you have a phone number?
No.
And are you currently employed?
No.
Okay. Okay. Did you want to make a bond motion?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. I spoke with Mr. Martinez Miranda briefly this morning, informed me that he is homeless in the area. We did not really discuss his criminal history. Given the non-violence of the offense alleged, I would request a high PR bond on his behalf in this matter. Thank you, Your Honor.
I do have a concern about releasing him on his own recognizance because It's been partially non-responsive to the court, which is concerning. Also, the nature of the allegations, although it's only being charged as a malicious destruction of a building, does cause the court to have some concern about the threat to the public safety. So for that reason, the court's not going to release him on a PR bond. It will, however, do a low 10% bond in the amount of $2,000, 10%. While out on bond, Mr. Martinez Miranda, you need to make sure you appear to all of your future court dates on time. You're not to engage in any assaultive or threatening behavior. You're not to travel outside the state without prior approval of the court. You're not to use, purchase, or possess any drugs or alcohol unless you have a valid prescription. You're not to purchase or possess a firearm or other dangerous weapon. Do you understand that, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Okay. So he's not responsive. Any additional matters for the record?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. You're all set, sir. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Have a good afternoon.
Same to you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Noble and Mr. Keithley.
Thank you, Your Honor. Have a good afternoon.
Have a good afternoon, Your Honor.
Same to you. You would have to end the Zoom.